the floor.
Good morning. أنا السيد إسماعيل سليمان نائب رئيس المجلس الشعبي الوطني بدولة الجزائر. سيداتي والسادتي الكرام، أصحاب المعالي، زملائي النواب الشباب من مختلف الدول وضيوفنا الكرام، يشرفني بصفة رئيس هذه الجلسة أن أرحب بكم جميعا في هذا اللقاء الهام الذي يندرج ضمن فعاليات اجتماع البرلمانيين الشباب لمجموعة العشرين، والمنعقد لأول مرة على أرض إفريقية تحت شعار البرلمانيون الشباب كمحركين للتضامن العالمي والمساواة والاستدامة. كما يسعدني أن أتقاسم رئاسة هذه الجلسة مع زميلتي النائب المحترمة السيدة كوبي من الجمعية الوطنية لجنوب إفريقيا، وأغتنم هذه المناسبة لأتوجه بخالص الشكر والامتنان إلى جمهورية جنوب إفريقيا على استضافتها الكريمة وحسن تنظيمها لهذه الفعالية الهامة. إن اجتماعنا اليوم يعكس التزامنا المشترك بإعلاء صوت الشباب في صنع القرار، وهذا ما نحرص عليه جميعا في برلماناتنا الوطنية. ودون إطالة يسعدني أن أحيل الكلمة إلى زميلتي الرئيسة المشاركة لهذه الجلسة السيدة كوبي لتعرف بالجميع المتدخلين.
Thank you for that introduction. I do hope that some of you did get the interpretation. It is on channel 3, that is Arabic, and also 1. Now it's on 1. That's where English is. Thank you so much, Mr. Smiley, for that introduction. Really, it was very gracious of you to say that of us. Thank you. Now I'm going to introduce the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly of the South African Parliament, Ms. Togodidiza. Mami.
Co-chairs, Honorable Kobe of South Africa and Honorable Silmani of Algeria, member of the IPU Young Parliamentary Forum, Mr. Den Carden, representative of the SAD Youth Parliament, Honorable Manon, I see she's not here yet, chairperson of the Y20 South Africa, Mr. Matlala, all young parliamentarians who are here from various member states, as well as the multilateral organizations who are part of the G20, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Actually, looking at all of you, I also feel young. I was once in those seats, but I graduated, so there was a point at which I was an ancestor of the youth, you know. So bridging the gap between young and old, and then somewhere I had to mature and be old. And I still envy the category of young people because of its vibrancy and also bringing new ideas to the fore. And I'm sure that's what you'll do during this session. Honorable members and distinguished guests, it is my greatest pleasure to welcome you to South Africa. Like many countries, South Africa offers different scenery, history, diverse cultures, and its unique beauty. Each year in September, we celebrate our cultural diversity, embracing our common values which are enshrined in our Constitution. It is my hope that your limited stay and the friendships you would have made during this session will be an incentive for you to visit our country again. I'm excited speaking to Carden. He already said, I've decided I'm going to add one more day in Cape Town. So with Carden having led the way, I'm sure some of you are going to say, I'll spend a day in the Free State or another day in KwaZulu-Natal. As one of the youngest nations, we are still rebuilding our communities from a past that had divided us. I'm sure when you landed in Cape Town, you would already have seen the schism in our country. On one side, the much acclaimed development in our country, but on the other side, what you would call representing one of the underdevelopment communities. But it is our commitment through our Constitution that we will ensure that we bridge that divide. Hence, I'm saying we're still a building nation. We, as a member of the G20 and as its current chair, we chose to bring in the table issues of solidarity, equality, sustainability to the fore, as we believe that we cannot reflect on the global economy without acknowledging the inequality that still exists in our world. We also appreciate how solidarity can help to foster cooperation for the greater good. Our very economies depend on each other. We trade as nations because we need what others produce that we are not able to because of our different ecological environments. To build sustainable economies also calls us to appreciate the need for protecting our infinite resource, the environment. In this august house are young parliamentarians from varied nations with a common goal of representing hopes and aspirations of young people. This forum is a platform that offers young parliamentarians an opportunity to table and debate political, social, and economic issues that impact the lives of young people in the world. It is a platform to formulate solutions that can positively impact the lives of all young people. It is for these reasons that we have strategically placed this session prior to the Speakers' Summit to ensure that its agreed outcomes forms part of the joint outcome statement of the Speakers' Summit and make a contribution towards the leaders' meeting that will be in November. Co-chairs, in the world characterized by inequality, persistently high levels of poverty and unemployment, and growing global tensions and trade protectionism, solidarity and international cooperation becomes a crucial instrument to attain global peace and sustainability. Young people are often the most affected by the choices and actions of today, and therefore taking decisions without young people's voices and involvement is no more ideal. Young people are a powerhouse in exploring solutions to problems of the modern world simply because they bring new perspectives, new energy, inventive ideas, and fresh perspectives not only to the world but also in our legislatures. Youth technological and entrepreneurial activism give them a competitive edge to navigate the complexity of today's world, thus helping us all to derive original solutions needed in our world today. Co-chairs, honorable members, as we promote world societies that are founded on democratic value and respect for human rights for all, we must be conscious that many challenges remain despite the progress that we have made. Some of these challenges include limited inclusion of young peoples in parliaments, high levels of youth unemployment, slow or stagnating economies, weakening multilateralism, rising global hunger, and intensifying geopolitical challenges coupled with growing nationalism sentiments. It is the youth who must inherit this world economy that is yet to fully recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. A world characterized by high cost of living, which is compounded by rising risks of climate change. Honorable members, distinguished guests, the challenge of rising unemployment among young people is a growing concern, not only in our country or continent, but globally. With young people accounting 1/4 of world's population, they are a dominant force and resource that is idling in today's economic activity, not because of their choice, but because of what choices and decisions that might have been made before them. A relatively large share of young people are neither working nor economically active in emerging and underdeveloping countries, underpinned by issues such as constrained government fiscus, skills mismatch to modern digital economy, and the ripple effect of COVID-19 pandemic. Several UN World Youth reports have pronounced on the challenges faced by young people at the workplace, such as the Youth Perspectives on the Pursuit of Decent Work in Changing Times, published in 2011, and other later reports. As parliamentarians, we must reflect on how countries individually and collectively have progressed on measures resolving youth unemployment using the oversight mechanism available to world parliaments. Today in the world, conflict and instability is estimated to affect more than 400 million young people. This will place young people in fragile conditions such as extreme poverty and expose them to gender abuse, human trafficking, and others will be turned to child soldiers. In 2024, the Global Peace Index showed that peacefulness in the world has reached its lowest level. Conflict perpetuates the migration problem, which exerts pressure on already fiscus-constrained countries. This means that a large number of young people are unintendedly deprived of opportunities to acquire quality education, health and entrepreneurial skills to engage in a global economy. Co-chairs, as young parliamentarians in the world, you have an obligation to influence parliaments to develop laws that are sensible and humanly acceptable to resolve the global migration problem, among others. Due to world instabilities, young people encounter economic and social insecurities that compels them to seek better life opportunities elsewhere. And we all know that some of those young people end up in the seas as casualties as they try to look for greener pastures elsewhere. Estimate shows that half of youth aged between 18 and 23 in Africa, Middle East, and in developing countries are likely to consider emigrating if their respective governments do nothing to improve the quality of life. Co-chairpersons, honorable members, creating legislations and conditions that will inspire hope and bring stability in the world is a collective responsibility of all countries. Hence, promoting solidarity is an important aspect of achieving our sustainable development goals. A collective action is equally important to mitigate the effects of climate change in the world, especially the poor and the developing countries that have weak coping mechanisms. Even though youth and children have contributed the least to global climate change, they are the ones to carry the highest cost of climate crisis and suffer the consequences of global warming. In Southern Africa, the frequent occurrence of drought and storm rains events have had devastating impacts on agriculture and infrastructure, regressing developmental progress in countries like South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, and Mozambique. Research on climate change effects suggests that children born in recent years would face 7 times more scorching heat waves than their grandparents. Honorable members, another critical area to consider is the active and meaningful participation of young people in parliaments across the world. The IPU reported that 2.8% of world's parliamentarians are younger than 30 years of age. Moreover, 73% of world's parliament upper houses do not have parliamentarians younger than 30 years of age, implying the voices of young people is abjectly represented in parliaments. South Africa has recognized the value of young people as agents of social change in societies. Hence, the inclusion of youth in both houses of South Africa's parliament is a non-negotiable democratic goal. I must say that while we do not have a quota system, but I think encouragement to different political parties to bring in young people in parliament has actually assisted. But I must also say, it is because of youth activism on their own that have made expression for this to happen. Otherwise, if it was left to the adults, I'm not sure whether we would have reached even the levels that we have reached. Smaller as it is, but I think we owe it to the activism of young people that we have a youth voice in both our parliaments as well as our legislatures. Co-chairs and honorable members, history has taught us that youth is sacrosanct ingredient in formulating sustainable solutions in world challenges. Through a transformative power of technology and artificial intelligence, young people are able to put their skills, energy, and talents to drive real change in the world. I want to encourage each of you that in your deliberations, you must reflect on how the world can better employ the sheer power of young people to build the world we all want. This means that debate and counter statements must unpack issues and propose solutions that will improve youth inclusion in lawmaking and in global businesses. They must identify incentives to empower youth to maximize opportunity brought by the artificial intelligence, obviously looking also at its regulation so that it serves better our country. It is also important to look at how we look at local responses and enhance values of natural endowments in each country. Co-chairpersons, honorable members, I encourage you to explore the types of investments required in education, social and economic sectors to advance global cooperation and youth entrepreneurship. Recent global leanings have shown that digital transformation underpinned by property rights and open trade policies have the potential to reverse the trend of unemployment and stagnant economies. Education is a formidable force to stimulate global transformation. We must find innovative ways to reorient our educational systems with the objective of instilling modern technology, competencies, and skills required to nurture well-core values that promote solidarity and equality. Technology and innovation is another enabler that holds great promise to addressing the youth employment and influence legislatures in developing and developed countries. Access to accurate information can bridge the digital divide. However, technology advancement can also aid misinformation when care is not exercised, as seen in the case of South Africa relating to recently passed laws on land and transforming its economy. Co-chairperson and honorable members, as I conclude, let me remind you that almost 90% of the world's youth is living in developing countries. This means that the Global South has an equal bigger role to play in shaping the world as industrialized countries. Therefore, our actions and decisions today must ensure that young people in the Global South gain a meaningful access to economic opportunities, to global economy, development, and stable society. Young people are the backbone of world societies, a primary human resource for development, and agents of social change and economic prosperity. If we accept this notion, we must therefore ensure that young people's participation goes beyond just consultations in global platforms like P20 Young Parliamentary Forums. Sufficient resources must be made available, and laws must be intentionally designed to implement measures that would include and truly actioned the voices and needs of young people in our countries and globally. I thank you.
أنا جد سعيد أولا أنني كل مرة أتحدث ترفعون السماعات هذه للمرح. شكرا جزيلا لصاحبة المعالي على هذه الكلمة الهامة والملهمة. والآن ندعو السيد دان كاردن عضو مكتب منتدى البرلمانيين الشباب بالاتحاد البرلمان الدولي لتقديم كلمته، فليتفضل مشكور.
Madam Speaker, co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow honourable young parliamentarians, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honour to follow you and to be sat with you, Madam Speaker, and may I start by thanking the Parliament of South Africa for hosting this event and for organising this first ever P20 meeting of young parliamentarians. I am a rather ageing young parliamentarian. I'm 38 years of age and I was president of Young Parliamentarians until earlier this year. And during my time as president of Young Parliamentarians at the IPU, I lowered the age to be considered a young parliamentarian to under the age of 40. So I'm rapidly approaching the end of my time. But it's been a privilege to hold this position and to really support and lead change for young parliamentarians at the IPU. To set the scene, let me begin by sharing some of the alarming statistics that Madam Speaker touched on as well. Because we launched these 2 weeks ago at our global conference of young parliamentarians in Peru. And they are that just 2.8% of the world's MPs are under the age of 30. That's 2.8%. This proportion had been growing, but it's been growing since 2014, but it's been at a standstill since 2023. And young women are especially excluded, with just 1.2% of MPs being women under the age of 30. And this proportion has actually declined since 2023. And finally, that 37% of parliamentary chambers, just over 1/3 of parliamentary chambers, have no MPs under the age of 30. I think we all want parliaments to reflect the societies that they represent. However, when it comes to youth, we are very far from accomplishing this goal. And when half of the world's population is under the age of 30, but fewer than 3% of MPs are, it's no longer just a statistic. It really is a democratic emergency. Youth inclusion is needed for a just and representative society. But beyond being the right thing to achieve, it's also surely the smart thing. The reason is simple. We meet at a time when the global community is tackling unprecedented challenges. From climate change to technological disruption, we need all hands on deck. And the fresh and innovative ideas brought by youth are one of the greatest resources to solve these global problems. It is this vision for a more inclusive parliament that propelled the IPU's own youth movement. It began in 2010 when members of parliament adopted a groundbreaking resolution on youth participation in the democratic process. And it came at a time, back in 2010, when the world's youth were demanding change. Their voices had been at the margins, and the complaints that young people were being left unheard and unrepresented was ringing out from continent to continent around the world. The resolution at the IPU was a rallying call for change and a roadmap on how to achieve it. It called on parliaments and other stakeholders to enhance the number and influence of young people's participation within parliaments, and a new era of international cooperation to support this. And the IPU has been working tirelessly to implement this resolution ever since. We created the Forum of Young Parliamentarians. As the global megaphone of the world's young MPs, this body serves to enhance youth participation in national parliaments and also strengthen the participation of young MPs within the IPU itself. Since its inception, the Forum has been serving as a hub for MPs from around the world to report on progress in their own countries and to coordinate action. And it also led to changes within the IPU structures. The proportion of young MPs at our assemblies has grown significantly, and young MPs are represented in all of the IPU's governing bodies. I'm also particularly proud of the forum's work in championing gender equality, with parity being mandatory within the forum bureau. The IPU resolution also led to the IPU being the global observatory on youth in Parliament, by collecting data on ages of MPs and parliamentary actions to promote youth. We've become an international reference point on this topic and an official custodian used by the United Nations to measure progress for SDG 16. Since 2014, we've been organising yearly global conferences of young parliamentarians. We just held our 11th conference in Peru, where we focused on the role of young MPs in uniting generations for gender equality. Here we made bold calls for gender parity in parliaments, an end to violence against women, and greater cooperation with stakeholders like civil society in equality efforts. And I'd invite you all to check out our outcome document, which is now on the IPU website. Since our youth movement began, IPU has also organised an array of other activities to empower young parliamentarians, from the national to the global events. This includes skills training and capacity building on key topics such as climate change, employment, sustaining peace, and much more. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made great strides since our resolution in 2010. But as we can see, much more work and action is needed to ensure meaningful youth participation in politics. The last 15 years have shown us the magnitude of the problem, but they have also revealed the solutions that we know can help us deliver results. Many of these have been summarised in the 6 pledges of the IPU's I Say Yes to Youth in Parliament campaign, which was launched in 2021. These actions include promoting youth quotas, and I'm pleased that these are increasingly common in parliaments, nearly doubling in number since 2014. Aligning the age of eligibility for political office with that of voting. We firmly believe that if you're old enough to vote, pay taxes or serve in the military, you cannot be too young to run for office. Supporting youth channels in Parliament, including youth caucuses and committees. Empowering young MPs by providing training and ensuring they have leadership positions in Parliament once they are elected. And finally, mentoring and supporting young aspirants hoping to get more involved in politics. And advocating for youth participation. Today, over 1,000 MPs and 155 countries, as well as 90 speakers of Parliament, have joined this campaign. And if you have not done so already, I invite you to sign up as well, and this can be done in just a couple of minutes through the IPU's website. As we can see, we know many of the solutions that can deliver transformative change for youth in politics. And we have a strong coalition of change makers who are working to this end. What we need more than ever is the political sense of urgency and determination to make this issue a priority in each of our countries. We need everyone working together across the globe, and this is why this first meeting of P20 young parliamentarians is such an important step in that journey. It provides a new launchpad to mobilise change. And I encourage all of you to seize this moment and to use this opportunity to advance the cause of youth participation even further. The IPU and the Forum of Young Parliamentarians stand ready to work with you to meet this shared objective. Let me finally thank once again South Africa and the Parliament and you, Madam Speaker, for including this as part of the agenda, and wish everybody well for the next 2 days as we seek to bring about further influence and change on behalf of young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Carden. I think I do agree with you that we have now reached a democratic emergency with the underrepresentation of young people. And this is not just because excluding us perpetuates inequality, but it's because it undermines long-term progress. The solutions that we have, the issues that we have are global in nature, and they will require all hands on deck. So I do agree with you, and I would like to join you in thanking South Africa really for starting this P20 initiative. I think it was just in the Youth Month when the House Chairperson was presiding over our sitting, our first sitting in as the P20 Youth Parliament. And I can tell you now that young people are eager to lead and to be part of the change that we want to see. And with that, I would like to welcome two speakers who are going to give us the overview of the P20 Young Parliamentarians, Honorable T.S.B. Sapo, apologies, and Honorable T. Manong, who are going to give us an overview of the P20 Parliament of South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chair, Honorable Speaker, and Honorable members. I think my task is just simple: to provide an overview of the P20 Young Parliamentary Initiative, and secondly, to offer some reasoned justification on the necessity, relevance, and importance of formalizing or institutionalizing annual P20 Young Parliamentarians meeting as integral part and additional component of the P20 interparliamentary mechanisms that holds greater prospects for advancement of parliamentary diplomacy. Perhaps, Honorable Chair, let me start my remarks by underscoring the importance and historic purpose and mission of this initiative. But to begin by laying a background, as honorable members will recall, that in 2023, the Federative Republic of Brazil held the rotating presidency of G20. During its G20 chairmanship, and in the context of its P20 presidency, Brazil organized 3 main events, which were inclusive of the first P20 meeting of women parliamentarians, the 10th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, and lastly, the G20 Parliamentary Forum, which were dedicated on stimulating debate on the implementation of the recommendations emanating from the previous meeting I just mentioned. Now, based on the governance principle of presidency rotation, on December 1st, 2024, South Africa assumed G20 presidency, and at its launch, the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that South Africa has adopted the theme solidarity, equality, and sustainability for its G20 presidency. Honorable co-chairs, similarly in this context of South Africa's G20 presidency, the following meetings or events were planned in the run-up to the 11th P20 Speakers Summit. 1, public consultative engagements and sectoral parliamentary activities. Secondly, the high-level G20 Symposium for African Continent Speaker of Parliaments in partnership with the Pan-African Parliament. The second P20 meeting of women parliamentarians, and these inaugural P20 Young Parliamentary meetings. Inspired by the Brazilian experience and consistent with the practice followed by the multilateral interparliamentary structures such as BRICS, South Africa then decided to introduce and host this first P20 Youth Parliamentarians meeting as part of the broader 11th P20 Speakers Summit. The aim of this Young Parliamentary Meeting is to promote young participation in democratic institutions and processes at all levels. Secondly, in amplifying young MPs' voice in shaping global policy agendas by integrating the perspective and the needs of young parliamentarians and contributing youth-focused input into outcomes documents of the P20 and the G20 summit, and to establish a forum for young parliamentarians, fostering substantive dialogue and sharing of experience, especially on the challenges that are confronting young people. As honorable members, the P20 Young Parliamentary Meeting is not only envisioned to be the launchpad of impactful young youth parliament activism, but it is also intended to be the forum of young parliamentary diplomacy, recenter the importance of youth priorities, and elevate them to find place on top of the agenda of the global institution and interparliamentary cooperative mechanisms. That is why the following issues were then identified to be the themes or focus areas of this inaugural meeting. 1, parliamentary actions to fight climate change. This segment will then talk on the current state of climate change and international response. Young MPs have a clear role in addressing climate change, from reviewing legislation budget to applying oversight tools to monitor government implementation of climate commitments. 2, youth-oriented institution reforms. This segment will reflect on how oversight legislation and budget processes can be utilized to advance the development of young people as builders of communities, citizens, and entrepreneurship. 3, to create an enabling environment for young entrepreneurs and employment. This session will reflect on which national policies has proven to be effective in promoting youth entrepreneurship and employment. It will also discuss how can Parliament support red tape reduction initiative to enable young entrepreneurs. To this end, some honorable members will then might ask themselves, why is it important to have young parliamentary meeting, given the fact that in terms of the G20 working logics, there is an already engagement group that is mainly focused or dedicated to young people, which is a Y20. I think by now, and what was raised by the Honorable Speaker, that question would have been answered. Or beyond this meeting, honorable members will then have answers. From where I am standing, Victor Hugo's a former quote, I quote, "No power on earth can stop an idea whose come has come." I think this captured this rationale behind introducing and formalizing of the P20 Young Parliamentary Meeting. This quote captures the power of ideas at the moment of transformation. It suggests that when an idea aligns with the need and sentiments of the society, it will inevitably gain momentum and lead to change. And let me then to add that, honorable members, this young parliamentary meeting is not only an idea whose time has come, but a viable parliamentary diplomacy instrument with a transformative potential to make a global equality, solidarity, and sustainable in the historical reality. Thank you very much.
شكرا لك سيدتي المحترمة على هذه الكلمة الهامة والفعالة. نمر مباشرة الآن إلى وأدعو السيدة تاكان مانونغ نائبة ببرلمان الشباب لمجموعة التنمية لإفريقيا الجنوبية لإلقاء كلمتها حول البرلمانيين الشباب، فلتتفضل مشكورة. عذرا أود أن أدعو السيد في في آخر مداخلة السيد المحترم ريمون مطلالا رئيس مجموعة شباب العشرين لجنوب إفريقيا لإدلاء بكلمته، فليتفضل مشكور.
Thank you, Chair, Co-Chair, Madam Speaker. I'm here today in the boundaries of Parliament, so I would say honourable members. In my normal life, I would say comrades and compatriots, dear friends and colleagues. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity, especially as Y20, to engage the P20 young parliamentarians around some of the work that we do. I would also like to express our gratitude to the South African Parliament for inviting us to this session. I also want to just acknowledge young parliamentarians that are in the room. I see some familiar faces that I worked with in my previous life as well. Right, what is, maybe briefly, just to talk about the role of Y20. So Y20 is an official engagement group of the G20, is the oldest engagement group, in fact, which was launched and established in 2010, where it held its first summit. And this year, Y20 celebrates 15 years of existence. And Y20 has produced 14 communiques. And I'll get to that when I get to my remarks. And Y20 was supposed to produce the 15th communique this year during the Y20 South Africa presidency. Our goal is really to amplify youth voice within the G20 space. However, that has been quite a challenge. And during our presidency as South Africa, we had three fundamental high-level priorities. And two of those was to mainstream youth within the G20 framework, so that it does not just remain an engagement group which submits a communique, a symbolic communique, which ends there. So one of our goal and one of our advocacy, like radical inclusion and advocacy process, has been to ensure that we mainstream youth within all the G20 frameworks, and that includes all the 13 official engagement groups and non-official engagement groups, and of course also the ministerial working groups, and also the Sherpa track as well as the finance track. And it's quite an ambitious goal that we've set for ourselves. And the second one was to establish a permanent mechanism. I think the last honorable member spoke about it, institutionalization. As I've said, Y20 has been in existence for 15 years this year. We've produced over 400 policy recommendations through 14 communiques. None of those have seen the light of day in terms of implementation. And we said during our presidency, as South Africa, that is something that we would like to change, and we push into change. To further that, which and I understand is also a challenge for P20, is none of those have seen or expressly been included in the leaders' declarations for the last 14 years. And we also said we are tired with talk shows and symbolic communiques, and that is why Y20 concluded in August this year without a formal communique, but rather a chair's remarks or a chair's summary, which actually summarizes the importance and acknowledging the failures of the previous 14 communiques. What we've been working on is to ensure that there is an institutional mechanism. Although Y20 is an engagement group, there is no continuity. Every chairship hands over, starts from afresh. For example, when we got a handover from Brazil. It was a mouth or a conversational handover. There was no document to it. Even a simple website, you can't hand over because there is no mechanism, a foundation that carries those continuity. And that is what we said during our chairship as South Africa Y20. We do not want to be just relevant and popularist. We want to make meaningful impact. Now, what are some of the shared priorities with P20? I think one of the 5 thematic areas which Y20 focused on was inclusive economic development and employment. As we may be aware that youth unemployment is a critical issue globally, but more so depressing here in South Africa. So it was one of the 5 thematic tracks. We also looked at climate and sustainable development. We also looked at AI, digital skills, as well as education for the future of work. And we also looked at meaningful youth engagement and the reform of multilateralism. And when we say meaningful, we mean it, that young people should not be by the way. And it should not be a sideline. And that is why we're talking about mainstreaming, because what we're saying is you cannot determine the future without the voices of youth. And for them to be in that platform, they need to be in those decision-making platforms, not at summits. Yes, we attend summits, but summits have become talk shows, and we said we need to move away from talk shows. And that is why we wanted, we used precisely the word meaningful youth engagement and the reform of multilateralism. And also, we also looked at inequality. We also understand that there's immense inequalities around the world, and we're looking at also inclusive. So we know that there are challenges with respect to matters related to inclusive of outside of male and female gender disparities. So we also want to engage on those matters, have serious conversations using existing frameworks, the Pact of the Future and so forth. So those are the 5 key thematic areas we looked at. And I was so pleased to hear also Honorable Sabo also mentioning that climate and sustainable development is one of the fundamental issues that P20 young parliamentarians are looking at. And indeed, we need to work together because as parliamentarians, you are legislators, you provide policy direction, you also provide policy framework. So in doing so, when I looked at the shared priorities is to on education and skills development, how can parliamentarians accelerate the reform for the future-proofing of education system and system alignment? And it lies with parliamentarians to ensure that those frameworks are established. And that is where we come in as youth and Y20 to request these shared priorities with parliamentarians, the issues on climate change, the issues on digital innovation, and so forth. Now, there was a call for a institutionalization of parliamentarian, young parliamentarians. It's something that we are keen to support. In fact, there is the social summit, which is going to be taking place here in South Africa. And Y20 is actively participating in that. And we know we've got and advocated for sufficient space there. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite young parliamentarians, not only from South Africa, but from across all the G20 member states, to attend as part of that youth delegation during the G20 Social Summit, which will be co-chaired by President Ramaphosa. And then lastly, I would also like to call for action. So, Madam Speaker and colleagues in this room, please do not take this forum as just a forum that just sit and talk and just become a talk show. Kindly follow through with some of the recommendations that comes from this forum, and also Madam Sapu, we are available and willing to work with young parliamentarian as Y20 to ensure that we support that institutionalization mechanism and mainstreaming of youth. And lastly, from South Africa, what we've decided to do is to establish the Y20 South Africa Alumni Association that will become a radical inclusive mechanism and machinery that will drive G20 and beyond activities. And we also invite young parliamentarians to work together. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, I thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll call you Honorable Matala because now you're also within the precinct of Parliament. But I do agree with you that we must institutionalize the participation of young people. But you need not worry when you call on Madam Speaker and make a call to her, because she was one of the youngest serving ministers in the first administration. At the tender age of 29. At the tender age of 29, under 30, she was serving in the first administration as a minister. As a deputy minister, my apologies. But now we are moving on to the last session. It is going to be a photo session just so that we consolidate today's events and give it a physical capture of the events that took place today. If we could all just join me this side, it will be.
Thank you very much. Honorable delegates, once again, I greet you this morning. Let me start by greeting you all and my fellow young parliamentarians, distinguished guests and colleagues. We're about to start with our second session of the day. On behalf of South Africa, it is both a privilege and a solemn responsibility to open this important session of the P20 Young Parliamentarians meeting. Our theme today, which is Young Parliamentarians as Drivers of Global Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability, is not a question of aspiration, but a test of action. As President Nelson Mandela once said, and I quote, "Sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that great generation." We live in a world facing multiple crises, such as inequality, climate change, food insecurity, and the digital divide. Yet we also live in a time of immense possibility, where innovation, youth energy, and global cooperation can create real change. As young parliamentarians, we are not merely observers of the global challenges. We are agents of transformation. We carry the responsibility to bridge divides, to ensure that equality is not an aspiration, but a reality for everyone. And we have the responsibility to make sustainability the cornerstone of development in our globe. Honorable delegates, the call rests upon us. We are not only legislators, we are also diplomats of hope. Our task is to demonstrate that sustainability can secure not just our own future, but the future generations yet to come. Together with, I'm alone today. I was meant to co-chair with my Indian counterpart, but I'll be chairing this session. But I really call on this meeting to bring forth not only words, but solutions, not only debate, but we need a sense of direction as young people of this globe. This is our moment to show that young leaders are not the leaders of tomorrow, but we are the leaders of now. So we need to ensure that we create a secured environment for all young people, and an environment that is conducive for all young people to thrive in. With that being said, I will now then call upon different countries and young parliamentarians from different countries who are going to make their country statements surrounding the theme that we've presented of today, of young parliamentarians as drivers of global solidarity, equality, and sustainability. I will start upon calling Algeria to come up the podium and deliver the country statement. Thank you.
شكرا لكم. مجددا أود أن أرحب بنفسي وأصالة عن نفسي أود أن أشكر دولة جنوب إفريقيا على هذا التنظيم المحكم، وأيضا يشرفنا الحضور وسط هذه الأرمدة من الدول، وسط الزملاء أيضا الشباب البرلمانيون، إذ نعتبر نحن في الجمهورية الشعبية الديمقراطية الجزائرية أن الاستثمار في الإنسان وخاصة في الشباب هو الاستثمار الحقيقي الذي يضمن المستقبل، فالشباب يشكل القوة الحية للمجتمع ويمثل أيضا رافعة أساسية للتنمية المستدامة. ومن هذا المنطلق لقد جعلت دولتي الجزائر قضايا الشباب في صميم استراتيجياتها الوطنية، سواء على الصعيد الاقتصادي أو السياسي أو الاجتماعي، إيمانا بأن التنمية لا يمكن أن تتحقق إلا بمشاركة الفعالة والفاعلة أيضا للشباب. ولتعزيز هذا التوجه أنشأت الدولة الجزائرية، وذلك بقرار من السيد رئيس الجمهورية السيد عبد المجيد تبون، حيث قرر إنشاء هيئة استشارية لدى رئاسة الجمهورية متمثلة في المجلس الأعلى للشباب، باعتباره فضاء مؤسساتيا للتعبير عن انشغالات الشباب وتطلعاتهم. ويتمتع أيضا هذا المجلس بالاستقلالية المالية والشخصية المعنوية، وكذلك يتقدم بآراء وتوصيات بشأن مختلف القضايا التي تخص الشباب في المجالات الاقتصادية والاجتماعية والثقافية كما سبق وأن قلت. كما قامت وبادرت دولتنا إلى إدماج الشباب داخل مؤسساتها التمثيلية، حيث تم تأسيس الشبكة البرلمانية للشباب التي تضم 92 نائبا، من بينهم 11 امرأة، وتمثل هذه الشبكة إطارا عمليا لتعزيز المشاركة الشبابية في العمل التشريعي والرقابي، بما يسمح لهم بالمساهمة في إعداد السياسات العامة للدولة، ويرسخ أيضا قيم المشاركة الديمقراطية داخل المجتمع الجزائري. اقتصاديا أيضا تواصل الدولة الجزائر دعم طموحات الشباب من خلال تشجيع ريادة الأعمال وتهيئة بيئة ملائمة لابتكار المشاريع. وقد تم اعتماد برنامج خاص بالمؤسسات الناشئة وتوفير تسهيلات مالية وإدارية لتشجيع الشباب على الاستثمار، وأيضا استحداث وزارة خاصة بهذه المؤسسات من وزارة اقتصاد المعرفة والمؤسسات الناشئة، فضلا على إطلاق برامج للتكوين والتأهيل المهني تتماشى مع متطلبات سوق العمل. إقليميا ترى الجزائر أن مستقبل قارتنا، قارة إفريقيا، يرتبط بقدرة على توحيد الجهود، وخاصة عبر إشراك الشباب في التحديات الاقتصادية والبيئية والأمنية المشتركة التي تفرض تطوير آليات التعاون والحوار بين شباب القارة. ومن هذا المنطلق أيضا تبرز أهمية إنشاء منصات مشتركة للتواصل وتبادل الخبرات وتنظيم منتديات اقتصادية شبابية، فضلا عن برامج للتبادل والتكوين تساهم في رفع كفاءاتهم وتوسيع آفاقهم. تلكم هي بعض أهم النقاط التي ترى دولتي أنها مهمة في ذلك، وأوافق أيضا وأرافق الرأي الذي تقدم به سابقا زميلنا ممثل عن الجمعية الوطنية لجنوب إفريقيا، أين قال أن تؤخذ بعين الاعتبار أنه لا نعتبر هذا المنبر من أجل الكلام وفقط، بل من أجل تنفيذ بعض التوصيات التي تصدر من هذا المقام الهام. مرة ثانية شكرا وألف شكر، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much for that very powerful statement, Algeria. I think it's very important as young parliamentarians to ensure and ask ourselves about what transformative policies can we advance to ensure that young people everywhere and even in our countries have access to quality education and employment, in healthcare. And I think it's a good thing that your country has already started in advancing investment in young people in various ways. I think that is very commendable. We should also ask ourselves, with the question of solidarity, we are the geopolitics around us are moving in various ways and, in an unorthodox ways currently. And we must ask ourselves as young parliamentarians on how can we strengthen cooperation and trust, in a world that often seems divided. So the question of solidarity, we need to answer it as truthfully and as practically as we can in terms of how we can move towards it. And with that being said, I will then move to our next country, which is Turkey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Co-Chair, dear colleagues, it's a great honor to address in this distinguished meeting, and I extend my sincere greetings to each of you gathered here today. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Parliament of South Africa for their warm hospitality. We also wish to extend our heartfelt appreciation to South Africa for its principled stance and unwavering support for the people of Gaza. Your voice has been a beacon of justice and solidarity in these most difficult times. We are living a time when profound changes are reshaping politics, economics, societies, and even daily life. Breakthroughs in AI, digital technologies, renewable energy, and biotechnology are opening unprecedented possibilities. The global transition towards green growth and climate resilience offer tremendous opportunity to create inclusive prosperity. These developments reshape economies, redefine how we work and learn, and offering solutions to challenges once thought unsolvable. Never before has humanity been so closely linked. The exchange of idea, knowledge, and innovation across borders in accelerating progress. Yet, on the other side of this bright picture, inequalities and injustices that threaten our common future stand. Wars and conflicts destabilize entire regions. Hunger and famine still affect millions, and climate change accelerates its destructive impacts. While in some countries, young people can seize these emerging opportunities, in others, they are deprived of them as war, terrorism, famine, and economic hardships continue to hinder their potential. Dear colleagues, with all sincerity, as we gather in this esteemed meeting to discuss such important matters, I feel a profound sense of shame. We speak of climate change, of equality, of sustainable development, and of global solidarity. Yet, all these very principles are being systematically crushed by Israel in Gaza. For instance, while we speak here of climate change and ways to mitigate its impact, Israel has been destroying not only the people of Gaza, but also its very environment. Israel deliberately destroys the soil, the water, and the very fabric of nature itself in Gaza for the past 2 years. Through the genocide it has committed in Gaza, Israel has violated every rule of humanity and international law, shaking the very foundations of the multilateral system and global solidarity. While we deliberate here today, people in Gaza continue to suffer from severe hunger and thirst, and tragically, most of those losing their lives are young people and children. At a time when we, as young parliamentarians, are actively engaged in politics and entrusted with shaping the future, the fact that people in Gaza are dying of hunger while we are unable to stop it, it's something I'm personally ashamed of. This is a truth that should trouble the conscience of us all. Dear colleagues, in Gaza, the genocide committed by Israel has taken and destroyed the lives, hopes, and potential of countless innocent young people. This fact reminds us that without peace and justice, the dreams of youth for a better, sustainable, and equal future cannot be realized. As young parliamentarians, we carry the responsibility to transform dialogue into action, and nowhere is this more urgent than in Gaza. In this regard, Gaza stands at the very top of the issues we must urgently address. As young parliamentarians, we must raise our voices together and ensure that the atrocities and the genocide taking place there are finally brought to the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Delegate from Turkey, for that compelling presentation. Honorable delegates, we've heard powerful interventions, that remind us of the urgency of our mandate as young people. Also, we need to use our parliamentary diplomacy to keep the ICJ case on every international agenda in our midst. And this is how we can defend Palestine and the credibility of international law, by keeping it constantly on our agenda as we move. Honorable delegates, these insights have also showed us that while our contexts might differ, our aspirations converge in the end, and towards a fairer and more united and more sustainable world. So we must continue converging until we win this battle. It's not impossible, and it's only up to us, if we are honest in our engagements, to ensure that it comes to place. I will then move on to Honorable Delegate and young parliamentarian from Russia to come and make their presentation. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, госпожа председатель.
Madam Chair, distinguished colleagues, it is an honor and privilege for me to take the floor here today, and I would like to share with you some insights, the way we work with young people in Russia. We have 39 young people in the Russian Federation living today in our country, and Vladimir Putin said once, it depends on how we bring up young people, depends how Russia will be able to develop, whether it will be a modern, promising country, whether it can be effective, and whether it can retain its cultural identity as a nation in the challenging international environment. And this applies to all our countries and to all young people who live in our countries. And one of our key national goals is to enable every young person to find a path in life. And for that, we're doing a great deal to empower young people to get education, to fulfill their potential, and to proactively contribute to social undertakings and cooperation. And we pay special attention to mutually beneficial youth multilateral and bilateral cooperation formats in our foreign policy. We have a federal law on youth policy in the Russian Federation, and this is a very unique piece of legislation. I will tell you later why. And the main government agency that works with young people is the Federal Agency for Youth Affairs. And we are committed to expanding our international ties on the youth track. We have youth events that are held in Russia every year. You remember very well the World Youth Festival that brought together about 20,000 participants from 180 countries of the world. Both chambers of the federal parliament and the regional governments and the local governments have local youth assemblies, and the initiative of Speaker of the Federation Council, the upper chamber of the Parliament, Valentina Matvienko, we created in 2012 a chamber of young legislators of the Russian Federation. This is a permanent advisory body, and it includes two representatives from each of the regions of Russia who represent local legislative assembly or municipal assemblies. They all must be younger than 35 years old, and the key goals of this youth chamber is to devise and review laws designed to empower young people, to promote the sharing of best practices among young MPs, and making sure that young people are involved in state policy, while also working with international youth associations. As I've already said, one of the key goals for this youth chamber is to contribute to the legislative process. Young legislators can submit to senators their initiatives, and some of them are adopted as official legislation. In July 2020, there was a constitutional amendment in Russia which set forth a provision whereby youth policy is a major priority for our federal and regional governments, and this is how the law on youth policy of the Russian Federation was adopted. This is the key piece of legislation that regulates the way we work with young people. As part of our international cooperation, young MPs work with their colleagues from the Commonwealth of Independent States and from other countries. They visit Latin America, Africa, Middle East, the UN headquarters in New York, where we presented the Russian youth parliamentarism model. We have a lot of experience in working with young people in the Russian parliament. We're open to dialogue, we're open to mutually beneficial cooperation for the sake of the prosperity of future generations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rasha, for that insightful presentation. You are very intentional in your efforts to ensure that young people prosper, and I think we should open a platform to exchange ideas, as different countries and states to ensure that we exchange some skills and thoughts and ideas on how we can ensure that we can also practice some of your practices in our different countries. Thank you. I'll then move on to our representative from South Africa to come and deliver the presentation. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. My name is Fasiha Hassan. I am a member of parliament in South Africa, and I also hail from the province of Gauteng, which is where Johannesburg is. So if you flew through there, that is my home province. Honourable members, fellow youth parliamentarians and distinguished guests, South Africa's G20 is not just a milestone for our nation. It is a turning point for our entire continent. For the first time, Africa is not simply being consulted, Africa is leading. This particular presidency is Africa's chance to demand equitable debt treatment, bold reforms to global finance, climate justice, and policies that reflect our actual lived realities. It is an opportunity to move from the margins of global governance to the very center where Africa belongs. Other honourable member parliamentarians have mentioned that and the role that South Africa has played over the last year or two on the international stage. And while the African Union now is a permanent member of the G20, South Africa's presidency is not just a voice for one nation. It is the voice of an entire continent, united, determined, and unapologetically committed to fairness, solidarity, sustainability, and resilience in the face of climate change. For African parliaments, this is a moment to act with courage and conviction. We must align our legislative work with continental priorities and ensure that Africa's developmental and climate agenda shape global policy, not the other way around. Under the theme Harnessing Parliamentary Diplomacy for Global Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability, South Africa's presidency insists that African perspectives and African initiatives are not just an afterthought, but a driving force in global dialogue. Colleagues, we gather here with one shared mission, and that is to make sure the voices, the hopes, the demands of Africa, and not only Africa's youth, but the youth globally, are not ignored, but rather embedded in every single decision that we take. And we say so loudly, nothing about us without us. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. Over 60% of our people are under the age of 25, and the median age is below 20. And this is not a burden. This is not just a statistic. It is a powerful process. By 2050, Africa will have the largest working age population on the planet. In a world of aging societies, shrinking workforces, Africa has what the future needs: energy, creativity, innovation, and courage. But if we do not act, if our youth remain unemployed structurally, undereducated, excluded, and exposed to climate shocks, then what should be our greatest opportunity could become our ticking time bomb. And we refuse to accept that. This P20 summit, hosted by South Africa's parliament, by our parliament, is not just another diplomatic event. It is a global platform to fight for our generation. South Africa is committed to putting youth development at the heart of this P20 agenda. And that means very particularly inclusive economic policies to tackle unemployment, inequality, and the climate crisis. Concrete global commitments to education, digital access, and youth entrepreneurship. And the youth voices at the highest tables of parliamentary diplomacy. But to succeed, we must speak in one voice, a bold, Pan-African youth voice that refuses to be sidelined. These are the challenges that we must confront. Let us be honest. Africa's youth faces immense challenges. We have sky-high unemployment, unequal access to quality education and digital tools, poor healthcare and neglected mental health, barriers to finance, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And of course, the escalating effects of climate change, droughts, floods, food insecurity, war, poverty, famine, which of course has hit the poorest and the youngest hardest. Millions remain trapped in what we call waithood, a prolonged state of exclusion from work and opportunity. According to the International Labour Organization, more than 72 million African youth are not in education, employment, or training, and most of them are young women. And that, again, is not just a statistic, it is a crisis. So what are our priorities for this P20, for us as young people? We demand, number one, jobs and skills, vocational training, green economy pathways, climate-resilient agriculture and innovation hubs. We demand education and digital inclusion. Every African child must have access to the skills of the future, especially in climate science, technology, and renewable energy. Health and well-being, youth-friendly policies, not only for mental health, but reproductive health and climate-related health risks. Entrepreneurship, global financing, mentorship, and market access for youth-led entrepreneurship, especially those driving those African solutions for African problems. And these priorities must not stand alone. They are anchored in Africa's vision. Agenda 2063, Africa's blueprint, which calls for a prosperous, climate-resilient, and youth-driven future. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which compels us to advance health, education, decent work, equality, and climate action, which of course is one of the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course the Africa Free Trade Agreement, which can unlock industrialization, cross-border markets, and climate-smart jobs for youth. Let us be clear. Youth must not only benefit from this Africa Free Trade Agreement, as well as the climate finance. We must be the ones who design them, to shape them, to lead them. And of course, honorable members, the P20 under South Africa's G20 presidency is a historic opportunity. It is our chance to lift the youth of Africa to the center of global decision-making and to secure a just, inclusive, and climate-resilient future. We therefore call upon you to, number one, push for concrete youth outcomes at this particular P20. To ensure youth and climate are at the core of our national parliament's priorities, to collaborate across borders, not only within the African continent, but in the global south, to drive innovation and entrepreneurship, and of course, to hold global leaders accountable, not only to Agenda 2063, the Africa Trade Agreement, and the SDGs, but to the future that we must have. Indeed, Africa is watching, our youth is watching, and history is watching. Let us make the work that we do here not die in the conference halls or communiques or statements, but reach every province, every village, every young person, not only in the African continent, but in the world. Because this is our moment as young people. This is Africa's time. And because climate justice and youth justice are two sides of the very same struggle. Nothing about us without us. I thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable delegates and honorable Hassan from South Africa for that very powerful presentation. I hope I have not left any country in the present countries. Okay, sorry about that. Apologies. Please receive my sincere apologies. I'll then call upon Italy to come and present their country statement. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues from parliaments and everybody who is present here. I'm truly delighted to be here today for the first meeting of the young parliamentarians from the P20 countries. Thank you for South Africa for hosting us so beautifully, and thank you for the Parliament of South Africa for all the effort it made so that we could be here today. I believe the P20 today, this first meeting, sends out a powerful signal about how seriously we are taking our younger generations, their view, their vision, and their role. In my notes, I wrote down for the future, but I would like here to quote the wise words of Madam Chair at the beginning, who said not just for the future, but for the present. Actually, she said for the now, with a very meaningful expression, I think. This first meeting marks an important historic moment, standing as a tangible acknowledgement of the key role to be taken up by the younger generations in two fields that are very, very important nowadays: parliamentary diplomacy and development cooperation. The items on the agenda of this meeting ranging from climate and sustainable development, we all know, we all had read through the program, I think political reforms, inclusive budgets, and also active participation of young people in decision-making, innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. And this provides an important opportunity for the parliamentarians involved to exchange views with the aim of promoting fair and sustainable development. Let me just make a small remark on the word sustainable. I would like to refer to the French translation for it, which I find very meaningful. The French friends, they call it durable, which means lasting. I believe we sometimes risked to come across a small misunderstanding about this word in the last few years. Sustainable doesn't only mean to go green. It means to go smart, to go strategic. How? By encompassing and think of being as green as possible, together with being economically and socially sustainable. So we have to sustain this effort in a way that all generations can actually take profit out of it. And I also want to add that the risk of just going green and not think about an activity from human beings being also economically and socially sustainable is that the young generations is the very first one who is gonna pay the price for this, I would say, small misunderstanding, but I think it's clear that I don't really find it very small. 2030 agenda and the Paris Agreement are crucial to the global fight against climate change and for integrated sustainable development. In particular, we have the Goal 13 of 2030 agenda emphasizing the need for urgent action to combat the effects of climate change, strengthening the resilience of territories and integrating these measures into national policies. However, it's very important to think how we are going to implement all this to be completely committed to this goal by adopting not only mitigation strategies, but also strategies to adapt to climate risks with a special focus on the most vulnerable groups, again, women, young people and marginalized communities. Just a few words about Italy. Italy has adopted the National Sustainable Development Strategies to coordinate the implementation of Agenda 2030. In 2023, we reduced greenhouse gas emissions, especially in the energy and manufacturing sectors, although transport still remains critical. Italy also ratified the Paris Agreement in 2016 and is playing, I'm very proud of saying this, is playing an active part in international climate conferences committed to achieving the global goals. Few other words, I think we will have several sessions between today and tomorrow. We can go deeper in this, but there are a number of initiatives in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, in the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE, of which I'm a member in the Italian delegation, in the Interparliamentary Union, and in the Y20 as well, the G20 engagement group. So we can say we are observing a number of, an amount of effort, a number of initiatives that really puts in focus, that really focuses on the role of young generation in order to tackle the global challenges that we all face. And so from one end, I would say we should just continue on this, trying to be as concrete as possible and as coherent and consistent as possible with those that we claim are our values and principles. And speaking about values and principles, I want to send a warm hug to our Moldovan friends who just held the elections yesterday. For all countries who decided to be democratic, and of course this is a decision, but some countries made this decision, it's very important that elections can be fair and transparent. Moldovan elections were a big and I would say meaningful democratic exercises. We observed many interferences, a lot of disinformation, especially pro-Kremlin disinformation, and we had many fake bomb alarms in the polling stations outside Moldova. In Italy, in Rome, for example, where I come from, people, Moldovan friends, could not vote because there were fake bomb alarms, which of course made the elections not possible for everyone. Notwithstanding, the result is pro-Europe, which is something we should, I personally I can be happy for this. And how does this relate to young people? Well, 3 million Moldovan people live in Moldova, but almost another half, so another 1.5 million more or less, lives outside Moldova. And among them, many young people who wanted to choose for their countries. So free and fair elections for those countries who decided to go towards democracy is one of the rights of young people that I believe we should highlight also here. And of course, nothing about us without us. And we heard this about the South African friend, and I could not agree more on this. I also think we should definitely highlight the right of Palestinian people to have a territory, to have a state, and so to support the two-state solution everywhere, also here. I also want to be consistent with this principle and thing that I'm saying by remembering that nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine is also a sentence we can keep in mind, just as we said with nothing about us without us. Ukrainian people have the right, and Ukrainian young people have the right to live in their country, in a safe country, to have development, to choose for themselves. And so I feel like ending this short speech by saying, Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member from Italy, for the compelling presentation. Honourable members and distinguished guests, as we bring this session to a close, a resounding truth emerges. Young parliamentarians are not a supporting voice, we are a leading voice in shaping global solidarity, equality, and sustainability. We won't be having any discussions for this topic because it was meant to be country statements on the theme. But we will have discussions in the next 2 sessions, which we will be participating in. The debate continues. We need to reaffirm that we are a generation unwillingly to inherit a broken system. The call for meaningful youth participation, institutional reforms, and decisive climate action has to be very clear, and it's up to this meeting to ensure that we are very clear as young people from across the globe on those various issues. Our task is to ensure that these words do not remain aspirations, but they need to become commitments, which will ensure that we oversee and ensure that they are implemented. And they need to shape real policies in our parliaments and in our global arena. So as representatives of different legislatures and parliaments, it's our responsibility to ensure that our words and our meeting becomes real policies which we will be implemented across. Today we affirm that solidarity is the antidote to division built on trust and cooperation across nations. And equality, we need to remind ourselves that equality is not an act of charity, but it's an act of justice. So we need to ensure that no young person is denied opportunity by circumstance of birth. Even with what was being said, it was recognized that sustainability is not a distant aspiration, but an urgent foundation of our survival and our prosperity going forward. Like I quoted in the beginning when we started our session, President Mandela's timeless words guide us still, that sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. So it's up to us to ensure that we are the great generation which will ensure that the generations to come are secured. Honorable members, greatness, we speak about greatness all the time, but it's not beyond us. It's not impossible. It is within us. And it's just up to us to just be truthful in our approach going forward. And we need to dare to act with courage and conviction. On behalf of South Africa, I thank you all for your passion, your vision, and determination to all our countries that presented to us this morning. Let us leave this room not only as participants in dialogue, but as custodians of change, committed to building a world that is united in solidarity and that is equal in opportunity, and ensuring that sustainability is a promise. The world is watching. G20 is coming up, and even us as young parliamentarians, we need to ensure that we rise together, and ensure that transformation is not just a wish and just words that we utter every day, but something that is going to happen now and not later. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. With that being said, I'm just going to give us literally a 3-minute transition for our next session, and just to ensure that we can move on to the next session of parliamentary action to fight climate change. And we will then have that session, and then discussions will then ensue after that. Thank you very much. I call upon my colleague, Honorable Nodada, who's going to be chairing this session. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning to everybody who's in the House. We are now going to move on to the session around parliamentary action to fight climate change. And this particular session will obviously have some time for us to have discussion points. For those of you that don't know me or came in late, my name is Baxolile Nodada. I'm a member of Parliament in the National Assembly. And I just wanted to talk to you a bit about this particular session, because it involves not only us as young parliamentarians discussing an issue that affects us now, but it also affects future generations. So it's important for us, when we have the discussion and put solutions on the table, know that it's not just only about us, but for future generations. Climate change is an existential crisis or threat that demands global solidarity and cooperation. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC's 2018 Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, human-induced warming had already reached approximately about 1.0 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by 2017. At the current rate of around 0.2 degrees per decade, the world is projected to cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold around 2030 to 2040. Within this global context, Sub-Saharan Africa has experienced warming of approximately 0.86 degrees Celsius above its 1991 to 2020 baseline, intensifying climate impacts such as more frequent and severe floods, droughts, and heat waves. To keep global warming within 1.5 degrees Celsius, the IPCC indicates that global emissions need to decline by roughly 40 to 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, reaching net zero around mid-century. This implies annual reduction rates of about 7.7 to 8% each year until 2030. South Africa's 2025 G20 presidency, under the theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, officially framed our global cooperation efforts, emphasizing a just, inclusive, and sustainable transition. In parallel, at the intergovernmental level, the P20 parliamentary platform, parliamentary group of G20 countries plus invited partners, provides a space for legislatures to collaborate on aligning national laws and oversight mechanisms to meet these ambitious climate change targets. In the African climate story, South Africa stands at a pivotal crossroads. Though its historical greenhouse gas emissions are modest, the impacts of climate change, droughts, heat waves, and floods are becoming more frequent and severe. Parliament has stepped into this narrative, evolving from policy-shaping body into a central actor in national climate governance. South Africa's 2025 G20 presidency, guided by the theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, presents a pivotal opportunity to harmonize climate policy, finance, and parliamentary oversight in pursuit of an equitable transition. This theme reflects the country's commitment to fostering cooperation and inclusive progress while addressing systemic inequalities exacerbated by the climate crisis. Parliament is central to realizing this vision, and so are other parliaments around the world. Legislators must at this time start championing the adaptation plan by enforcing mandates across the different municipalities, provinces, as required by the Climate Change Act. Mainstream climate finance in the national budget cycle and promote innovative grant-based instruments such as green bonds and concessional funds. Strengthen climate data systems, ensuring robust information sharing across the DFFE, DMRE, National Treasury, and local governments. Elevate climate literacy through constituency-level campaigns, dialogue, and accessible educational material. Enhance citizen participation via public hearings, service delivery forums, and platforms that translate community into accountable policy making. In so doing, parliaments around the world, particularly us implementing in South Africa, will not only improve mitigation and adaptation outcomes, but also ensure the communities across the country and the world, especially those most vulnerable, are protected, empowered, and included in the climate agenda. Let's all remember, a country that does not invest in its youth has no future. Thank you so much. I would now like to call upon the resource person, which is Ms. Vonana Rkhodzo, Chair of the W20 Climate Justice, Environment and Food Security Task Team. I don't know if that person is already here. Who is going to be presenting to us on the current state of climate change and international response. We're supposed to have a rapporteur from Japan. I don't know if that person is already here. So those are the people that are supposed to come and present to us now, and then thereafter we'll then have a discussion on that. All right. I see that those particular people have not arrived yet. What I'll then do in the meantime, after having presented that, is to open up to the floor to have a discussion around climate change and some of our country's perspectives on climate change. I know there are also representatives from the different legislatures here that this obviously does affect directly. So any of our participants today that would like to make some statements around climate change or make a contribution on climate change, please do indicate just by a show of hands. Cool. Turkey? Yes.
Dear colleagues, firstly, we changed the pronunciation. It's Turkey right now. It's not Turkey anymore. Dear colleagues, we stand today at a critical juncture for humanity. Climate change, wars, and inequality converge into a single test for our generation. The rising global temperatures, floods, droughts, and wildfires are already destabilizing communities. At the same time, violent conflicts reveal how fragile peace can be. These crises are not separate, they reinforce each other. As young parliamentarians, we are not just observers, we are responsible actors. Our duty is to advance ambitious laws that secure sustainable futures, ensure transparent governance, and strengthen multilateralism. The Paris Agreement is our roadmap, but it will remain ineffective unless backed by political courage and parliamentary oversight. Turkey, situated in the Mediterranean basin, faces acute climate threats. This is why we embrace the green transition vision and committed to the 2053 net zero emission target. Our Grand National Assembly adopted the first standalone climate law, updating our climate governance framework. Our nationally determined contribution is now more ambitious, showing that Turkey is ready to do its part. Moreover, our candidacy for COP31 reflects Turkey's will to host inclusive dialogue for collective action. But climate change cannot be separated from broader global challenges. Peace and sustainability are interdependent. The destruction in Gaza reminds us, without justice, peace cannot last, and without peace, sustainability cannot exist. As young leaders, we must not only raise our voices but also propose pathways for a fair and lasting solution. Therefore, I call upon all of us to combine words with action. First, to support immediate humanitarian corridors in Gaza to protect innocent lives. Second, to strengthen parliamentary diplomacy for ceasefire and peace talks. And third, to reaffirm that justice and sustainability for a fair and lasting solution. No. This is not only a matter of solidarity but of responsibility. While we debate the long-term challenges of our world, in Gaza an urgent humanitarian crisis is unfolding. It is our responsibility not only to debate the future, but to respond to the present, to act where lives are being lost as we speak. The world doesn't need more spectators in Gaza. It needs problem solvers, bridge builders, and courageous voices. Dear colleagues, the future depends on the decisions we make today. Let us commit to action that transcends borders and differences. Together, we can shape a world where sustainability, peace, and justice reinforce one another. Today, I invite you to take action. Let this gathering not be just another discussion, but the starting point for solutions that will serve the good of all humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is it Turkey? Nice. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And I think we all agree that as much as we're making statements here today, it's also an opportunity for us to take back some of the suggestions that we have to influence legislation and oversight in our different parliaments across the world. So I'm going to ask the next country that would like to make a statement around climate change. If Algeria is ready, they can come through. Over to you.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Peace upon you all. Hello, everyone. I repeat my thanks to the country of South Africa for this event and for this summit. I thank all my colleagues from every country, especially for the P20. In fact, Algeria focus on all the global changes because of the geographical location by the Mediterranean Sea, as it is one of the 24 points, hot points, which affected by the global heating, and all this environmental threatening of floods, dehydration, and coastal problems. We have repeated floods in many countries for 10 times in the country since 1970. And around 19 hectares of the Algerian land, as we lose around 400 hectares from our land because of this climate change. As we have less rain around 20% before comparing to the previous, which leads to having less crops and agriculture production. And expertise, they are expecting by 2040, and that percentage will duplicate. Algeria is affected badly by the global changing, and the Algerian people will suffer lots of social groups. They have lots of problems in certain parts of Algeria. They have lots of problems related to the nature and the climate. والجزائر تقوم and Algeria is doing its best since 2023, as they put a fund in $25 million to fix all the problems related to the climate changing. And in Paris summit, they created a program. This program is to find all the strategies which indicate all the climate problems Algeria is facing, and also using the German technology in reducing all the climate changing problems and threatening and disasters in Algeria. In many fields like agriculture, water, industry, forest, and taking all the precautions to deal with all the climate changes in the future. And Algeria made lots of programs which is for all the areas which is more affected with this climate problems. This is with the support and the help of the German cooperation, which measured the percentage of the rain as the reduce of rain, which is reducing recently, is going to affect all the food resources. And in this Paris agreement, Algeria, Algeria had lots of policies التي Algeria made lots of policies التي which just shows the plan which is going to be till 2030. And our ambition is to raise the percentage till 22% by using all the technology ways and to have renewable energy resources and giving the priority to all the actions which will help with the climate problem with all bodies and parties in Algeria. As well, I need to remind about all the national strategies. As our climate ministry, we draw a clear line to accommodate all the threatening and risks which will happen in Algeria. As the Union Nation agreement receives all the reports from the Algerian ministry, received all the reports from Algeria at 2023. And we are doing our best to help with all the issues regards the change, climate change within the coming two years, especially about the gas release. And we are going to re-establish the green dam at the year of 2023, and to increase the green coverage from 3 million hectares to plus 4 million hectares in the coming years. And also by signing the document ولقد حصلت and Algeria have received lots of funds for all the efforts they did, and also we are working on all the process to work on the water problem, and we have 6 water stations to produce drinking water, to produce 60% of the drinking water in Algeria.
It is on the way to reach the 50%. And Algeria strategy to transform from the to project from the from to 2030, like projects like Tafuka 1 to the extent 4 gigawatt, and to update to include that and then the project the 13.5 terawatt from sun power that will give the Algeria the first and advanced position, and to look for environment and environmental change and present for the Algerian the President Ibrahim Douali the environment it September 2020, it includes 22 members from the Parliament of Algeria, 3 ex-parliamentarian who are like who are 2 women from the parliamentarian. The object and the goal of this committee to fix the environmental change. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Algeria, for such a comprehensive input. Honorable members, I just want to say that we are obviously ahead of time if you look at our program. And the person who's supposed to come and present to us is going to come at 2:30 with the assigned repertoire. But what I thought was important was for us to be able to make the statements that we need to make and use that opportunity when they do make a presentation to actually have a discussion, having heard each other's views, and maybe have conversations with those with the time that will take just before lunch. Would then the House be fine if we then continue with other countries' statements, or would you suggest that we wait for 2:30 and have an early break before the lunch period? Proceed now. Cool. Can we call upon Russia to make a statement? Fine. Italy? Is Italy also fine? Looks like they're fine. Cool. I would suggest that we do take so that we don't run too fast ahead of our own program, because I know some countries were well within the city, still traveling to Hermanus. So we might have a bigger delegation just after lunch. So I would suggest that we do take a break now and reconvene after lunch. So we obviously have an early break to that. So thank you so much again.